So on the way out of Nanga, I noticed one of my shoes fly off the top of my car. I keep them on top of my canopy underneath my tent when I'm sleeping, and luckily the other one was still up there, so I didn't lose any shoes. So I'm at the start of the track that heads to Steep Point. I'm just letting down my tyres, and then we're going to be hitting the gravel road. It's been such an awesome drive, and there are some wicked spots to stop and look at the cliffs and the waves, and just like, man, get yourself four-wheel drive and come see Australia. So I made it to Steep Point and took some photos next to the sign, which is the most western point of Australia. And unfortunately the sun glare wasn't the best for photo taking, but took a couple anyway, and then headed to my campsite for the night. I made it to my campsite just in time for the sunset, and I was very cozy with my little outdoor lounge set up for the evening. My tail light had become loose on the corrugation, so I got into the back of my tray and had a look at what was going on. So there was one bolt that was still screwed in, and there was one bolt missing, and the side that still had the bolt screwed in had actually snapped. So I had one missing bolt and one broken side holding the tail light on. So all it was really holding on by were the cords. So what I did is I removed the bolt from the broken side and put it in the side that was still okay, and then I used some zip ties to fix the side that was broken, as I didn't really have any other choice or any like glue I could use to fix it. But yeah, did the trick, and now it's nice and sturdy again. when I went to go and make myself breakfast, I noticed that a mouse had gotten into some of my dry foods that were in my drawers. I keep most of my dry foods in my passenger seat. However, there was a couple things still in the drawers, so I've now rectified that issue. I then started my adventures for the day, and the first stop was the steep point sign to take some better photos now that the sun was in a better position. I then continued exploring the national park, and it was mainly just driving along the cliff sides, and I tell you what, like, I never tired of seeing the waves crashing against the cliff sides. It's just, the ocean is so powerful. You definitely want to be careful when you're walking around the cliffs, because you can come across holes like these where if you're not looking where you're going, if you're being silly and running around, you can just fall straight down here. So definitely be cautious when you're exploring national parks. You're dealing with nature, and this includes the elements and structures that you're dealing with, not just animals. And in fact, 2 days prior to me arriving at Steep Point, there was a bloke that actually fell off the cliffs and they didn't end up finding him. So you just got to keep these things in mind when you're exploring places like this. Driving through the national park, you either fall driving through sand or over rocky tracks. All quite fun and nothing too extreme, so it was good to just get out there and have some fun. So I've never actually heard of blowholes before. So when I came across this one, I didn't actually know what it was, and it was only letting out like small puffs of mist. It wasn't having like explosive sprays like some of them that I've now seen. And when I did go up to it, I was using my phone on a stick, so I wasn't actually leaning over it to look in, but I'd still not recommend doing this. And if I come across one again, I would definitely not be getting this close to it now that I kind of know what they are. How blowholes are actually formed is in the rock faces. You can also find caves. So when the waves are crashing into these caves, it compresses the air inside and pushes it up against the rock, and eventually that erodes the rock and creates this chimney up to the surface. And then when you have big powerful waves coming in, it compresses the water and the air that's in these caves and pushes it up through the earth, and then you get the blowholes. On my way back to my camp, I decided to stop by a beach and I had it all to myself to just relax and cook myself some lunch. So I actually kind of prepared this salad the day before. It looks terrible, but it actually tasted awesome. It was my leftover lettuce, some carrot, cheese, boiled a couple eggs to put in it as well, and had some bacon. So it looked a bit rough because it was in a sandwich bag, but it was actually very enjoyable. And yeah, other than that, I also went for a bit of a kayak and saw a couple of little sharks. I also saw a shovel-nosed shark and plenty of turtles and rays as well in the water. So that was a really cool experience, and my first time actually putting my kayak in the ocean. So a little bit nerve-wracking, but it was so worth it.
In denial of myself, I find time to recognize things that seem so strange and alien now shine clearly into my eyes.
Back at camp, I practiced a bit of my flow, and I also ended up meeting a bloke who was on a bit of a fishing trip with the boys, and they'd all gone to bed, and me and him stayed up quite late till I think about 3 a.m. having some good chats. So that was really nice to have a bit of company. And then, yeah, next morning I started my trek back down the road away from Steep Point. Of course, I wasn't just able to leave the national park. I had to do a little bit more exploring, as there was some of the national park I still hadn't seen. And unfortunately, I did manage to get myself bogged again. So this time, again, it was the tire pressure wasn't low enough for the soft sand that I drove onto, and I didn't realize how soft that sand was when I actually went onto that beach. But put the tire pressure down some more, put my max tracks down, and that was enough to get me out. I did have to put the max tracks down twice to get myself back onto some firmer sand though. Yeah, but we got there in the end. After that, I went for a bit of a walk along that beach. It was such a beautiful beach, and the waves were just layered, wave after wave after wave. Yep, that's how I felt as well. Nice and relaxed, cruising along, and then I blew a tyre. So I'd hit some bitumen and let down my tyre pressure, but I had actually forgot that there was a section of bitumen in between dirt roads. So once I hit the dirt road again, I blew a tyre, and then when I went to go lower it down, I realised that the tool I need for that, I left at home. So you can see me here using a spanner to lower down my spare. I then realised that that tool is the same one that I used to remove the nuts from my tyre to get my tyre off. And the tools that I have don't have the right leverage to actually get my tyres off. So I decided, I guess I'll just wave down the first car. And what are the chances that the first car that I waved down was Jason and Shari from our place at Nanga, where I was only, 3 nights ago. And then we got the tyre off and went to lift my car up, and I've got a high lift jack, which is what I got told to get for my car. However, I don't have a steel bumper with points I can put the jack on to lift individual tyres off the back end. I do at the front, I've got a steel bull bar, but at the back I have to lift up my tyres, both of them at the same time, from the tow hitch. However, the ground was a bit uneven, so my car easily slid off the jack. Luckily, Jason also had a jack that was able to lift off one tyre off the ground, so we changed my tyre and I was on my way.